Good morning, everyone, with real estate investing, and we have some amazing guests this week.
I'm Irismar.
And I am Jim, and we are looking forward, Irismar. We have a wonderful guest, one of our dear friends.
100%. Deanna Boyden, a seasoned real estate investor and one of the founders for Real Power, Real Estate Awesome Ladies.
Yes.
An amazing community to really collaborate, support each other, and women empowering women.
We met Deanna a few years ago, and one of the great things about Deanna is that she creates this community around her and she gives back so often and so frequently. So we are ecstatic to have Deanna Boyden join us this week on Rise and Shine. And as we're bringing her in here, she is coming in from Curacao, where she also has an investment property. So welcome, Deanna. Hello. Oh, you're muted. It happens. Don't you worry.
Okay, here I am.
Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you're on the lovely island of Curacao. What's the weather like there today?
Yes, sadly, it's another sunny, warm day here. It's a little breezy at this time of year, and that's amazing. We used to watch those HGTV shows, Island Life and all of those, and they would talk about houses up on the hills and how that was great for the breezes. And we now understand that we actually are, we look over the water, we're a block from the water, but we're up high enough that we get this beautiful breeze. So you might see my pirate hair wave in the wind a little bit here. And that's what it is. But yeah, it's another beautiful day on Curacao.
Love it. Love it. And,
Yeah.
we were just talking about all the exciting things and amazing things that you do for the community and real estate investing. And Irismar was mentioning the Real Power Ladies, which I think you guys have an event coming up too, do you know?
We do. I'm really excited about this one. So we've had a few of these events now, and these weekends are incredibly special because inevitably we have somebody show up for the first time who will look around and say, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know there was a room full of women like me. Or like I want to be, and Irismar hears this as well. A lot of these women, we sort of grew up thinking, am I the only one who feels this way? And then we get into our 20s with our careers and we're like, and we feel a little bit alone in this. This is a common thing for entrepreneurs. And so when we bring all of these ladies together in a room for the weekend and we're listening to some of the top female investors from across Canada. And we just have this incredible camaraderie. And, we can bring in the sort of the feminine side of our masculine side of us with the business, but also the personal development, the wanting to help others, the just the general supporting each other to flourish. And this year we've got some absolutely incredible speakers, as we always do. Not just the big names, our friends Mandy Branham and Karina Guzman are going to join us. But Karina is speaking with Shifa Jawani, who is telling the story of how she came into Real Power. She met her first partner there. They started doing these projects that neither of them had ever tackled. And now she's partnered up with Karina, who I would say is arguably one of the largest female developers across Canada these days. So it's really interesting to me, Jim, to see these women come in and GSD, get stuff done, how they can empower each other to actually go move the needle in their lives. So we're doing this next one in Toronto, April 19th to 21st. For any ladies listening, please reach out to Irismar or myself to find out more about that, because it really is, as we started as a joke, it's not your daddy's real estate conference. It truly isn't. And on Saturday night, we get all glammed up and we have surprise entertainment, and it's a ton of fun as well.
I love it. And Irismar and I have been doing Rise and Shine for over a year now. And the one thing that I've mentioned a few times is that the women in real estate investing are rocking it. They are incredible. And
Yes.
as our community has grown to be more of an entrepreneur type of
Yeah.
community,
Mhm.
It's relevant. I mean, it's exactly there as well. The women are just incredible. They are really diving in and taking control.
Thank you.
Yes. It's an area where, the playing field can be leveled. It doesn't matter your gender. I mean, yes, there is still sort of an aspect of the old boys club, for lack of a better word, in development, certainly. But there isn't necessarily that glass ceiling that you have as an entrepreneur. We still have work to do on women accessing financing. We still need to have work done on helping women to raise their voices, to use their choices, and that's where we come in. We can help that one weekend at a time.
100%. And I would say though, the focus in real estate investing, right? If we bring it back, the community, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I think during the first year or two of inception, collectively, they work in a 25 million or more project total combined.
Yes, the first 12-hour, the women transacted just amongst themselves in the group. We're not even counting what they did outside of the group. Just what I saw within the group was $25 million. So we had a group of women who came together for the weekend. And when we talk about partnerships, I say you should spend time with these people. And there's no better way to do it than to come and travel with them and share a meal and really get to know them. So there was a group of women who sat at a table. They bought some fourplexes. There was another woman there who had a construction company. And she said, yes, I can do these kitchens for you. And so she empowered that group of women to buy these fourplexes. They, in turn, kept her busy for the full year. She will tell you, sort of her first year after meeting us, she was basically kept busy by the community of Real Power. And then she ended up leaving the job. She was working for someone, doing this in her 6 to 10 shift every day. And she was able to leave her full-time employment after a year, kept doing these jobs for the Real Power women. Then her husband left his job, and now they have their own construction company. That wasn't sort of our intention when we started this. But what we're seeing, it's just so important and so powerful. And the ladies who have jumped into this community, the women like Irismar who have actually joined our girl gang. That's the gang who does the work behind this. It is truly a movement, and it is created and sustained with love. By these women who are just loving seeing each other succeed. There's none of that competition. We get together, there are different activities through the month where women are coming together. We have our monthly mastermind calls. These women will come in, and it's a safe space to ask a question that they perhaps aren't comfortable at asking in a more open forum. And we can jokingly say, oh, I might have a bit of a girl question. What is pigtailing, for example? If a woman doesn't understand what pigtailing is, they might not speak up. And here they can come in and say, what's pigtailing? And everyone loves explaining it. And then we have incredible technical women in the group talking about it. One of our speakers was a home inspector, the smartest, brightest home inspector I've ever met. She had all of our chins on the floor, and she just happened to be a woman. We've got Sherry Coles, for example, who seems to be, one of the brightest minds on building code in Ontario right now, is speaking at our conference. And she's going to be walking us through how to cost out a project,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I mean, how many people sort of look at a renovation and go, I don't know how much that costs. Sherry's going to do a tabletop exercise and show us how to quickly calculate that. So I think those tactical things, once you get a skill, you're more likely to use it.
No, that's amazing, and I love that, and I love that. One of your events, I think, that you host is also in another sunny location that you invest in.
Yes, yes. So we have held, and we just had a meetup down in Palm Springs, California.
There you
Yes,
go.
we love the US. We live part-time in Palm Springs. And, I worked there. I had a successful career in Washington, D.C. And so my family's origins are in the States. And so yeah, it's a great market down there as well. It's a great time to be investing down there. And I think for people who are considering it, my advice is to really think about the differences, understand that there are differences between investing in Canada and investing in the US, understand why you're doing it, right? And it's okay if it's like me, it's for lifestyle. Right. I want to be down there and live there. Doesn't mean I'm recommending investing in Palm Springs necessarily, but I mean, the country. But also understand that it's not the same as investing in Canada in many ways, good and bad. And if you don't understand that, then you need to talk to somebody, not who's selling a US investing program, but somebody who is investing down there to truly understand the differences in it and the fact that your jurisdiction really matters. Think of it as, 50 separate little countries almost. It's very different in each state. And the rules are just different down there. It's not a place. So, for example, we invest, Darcy, my husband, and I invest across Canada. And there's very little change across the provinces, perhaps with the exception of Quebec. We have some differences in our landlord laws, in the tenancy acts, those things across the country. But essentially, you know, economic factors can be different. I'm quite fond of saying there is no Canadian real estate market. There's a Vancouver and a Toronto market, and then there's sort of the rest of us. But really, buying a property in British Columbia is not that different in taxation and the process and all of that than on the East Coast. But in the US, there are different considerations. One of those things right off the top is taxation, right? Different states have very, very different tax laws. And when you sell a property in a specific state, there are different withholding taxes. And you should understand that before you invest in a state. And when you get to a state like Florida, those taxes can vary by county.
Oh,
So you don't want to get a surprise that you buy a property, maybe you want to be a flipper, or even, 3 or 4 years down the road, you go to sell it to buy something else, and there's a 30% withholding tax, meaning the government is going to keep your money, 30% of it for a full, it might be a year, could even be longer, depending on when in the tax year you sell that property. So if you didn't know that, that could really hurt you, right? And yeah, it's not something that a lot of people realize, but that one thing is a bit of a gotcha.
yeah, yeah, and I love one thing that you started off with there is ask yourself why you want to invest, and it's the why that we need to understand is what's the goal of this, and really understanding
Yes.
it drives us. And the
Yeah.
other thing I do want to point out is that there are some really good US investing courses. And what we just want to make sure is if you're watching this, that you choose one that that they are actually investing in the US and practicing that.
Yes.
They know this, but you need the professional taxation lawyer for this because
Yeah.
Yes.
definitely heard some stories.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, taxation,
Yeah. Yeah.
cross-border accountants as well. And you need to.
I was just going to say that. And you need to think about your boots on the ground in a different way as
Yeah.
well. So, I think you need someone who has an existing operation in a location or someone who is right in that jurisdiction. If you're not experienced in the US, I would be hesitant to recommend partnering with someone else who isn't in that market, or is, if they're not located in that market but that they're new to US investing. I just think you really want to have some good experience around you. Your team is really important. Realtors in the US are much more niched than they are in Canada. So for example, a realtor that we use looking for commercial properties literally doesn't understand the residential market in the same manner that we're used to in Canada, where the realtors in Canada, you go talk to Natasha Phipps in Calgary. She knows everything from the condo market to single family home, small multis, up to commercial. Now a realtor may not specialize in all of those, but they're probably keeping an eye on them. They probably know that their clients invest across them. In the US, that is not necessarily the story. Because it's a bigger market, they can't know everything in their markets, right? So if you're going in and looking at commercial properties, for example, in a downtown, you might actually want to know about the condo market downtown, right? And so if you ask that realtor, they may not know anything. So you would have to go find another realtor or someone like that. So yes, getting involved with a network that has experience on the ground, getting a really good lawyer, a really good cross-border accountant, making sure that whoever your working partner or working team has experience on the ground is really important. There are some great programs in the States. Something that I think is really cool is the idea of Section 8 housing that you may have heard of, or HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development of the federal government. And essentially, HUD is the agency that comes out with the standards. Section 8 is their affordable housing program. So you can have tenants in your properties where the government is essentially, guaranteeing a certain level of rent. It's an incredible program. You can help lower income individuals get into housing. They need houses anyways. Why not make sure that they have a good landlord and you can ensure that these are clean and safe houses? Sorry, that's where my CMHC background comes in. Housing with a mission. The ability to do that in the US exists for us as well. So on that one, you want to, sort of find someone that the guy that we work with has, a team there that has been doing this, for example. So I don't necessarily have to go see those houses or do the work or any of that. His team is there and they know, and they actually show up on closing day with the HUD checklist, get the houses ready to go, and tenants are, sort of seeing the place the next day. That type of operation makes it a lot easier for you. Now, you may, as some good friends of ours have just done, want to buy a farm and do that work yourself. So on that, just make sure it's somewhere that you can get to easily, right? Watch your travel. Make sure that it's a place that you can maybe get to on one flight or two flights or driving distance, and that you spend some time in that market. If you are going to be the working team on the ground, grab an Airbnb down there for 2 to 4 weeks and really get to know the place. California, I really know the place. Right. And doesn't mean that's my favorite place to invest, right? I like having investments down there that other people run for me. We have an investment, for example, in Texas that that is run by someone. We're just a small part of that investment. So when you see good teams who are doing larger projects, if you're part of some of these networks, you will see fantastic projects down there. And maybe that's the way that you invest in the US.
Yeah, the affordable housing thing, I want our viewers to know that there is a crisis also in America. It's not just here in Canada. I heard Texas, there's something like I think it was for every apartment that's put up for rent, there's 18 applicants for it. So they're really there's bidding wars going on over there in the States as well. So
Yes.
Section 8 definitely sounds something to investigate and understand a little bit more.
Yes, especially like us, if you're, if part of your mission is to empower women, what better way than to get them and their children into safe and clean housing?
Oh, sorry, but
Say no, 100%, because it's about empowering, but also at the same time making it a win-win situation. Yes, it is a
Yes.
business we're running, but what is the solution that we are providing and how we making that experience being a full win-win to all aspects.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
now, in investing in the US there, Deanna, what other states are you keeping an eye on or interest?
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. It doesn't change drastically, right? The states that are known to be, investment friendly. So, and going to be very careful here not to get political, but in general, those happen to be Republican states. I live in a Democrat state, right? But starting from my West Coast, it's the Arizona, Nevada, Texas. Um, Florida is still interesting. There are some challenges there, but there are also some greater states. I think Tennessee is still a great one. You can move around to some of these markets. There are, a ton of people investing in Ohio.
Yeah.
For me, so here's a great example. Ohio isn't of interest to me. I don't think it's good or bad. It's just not of interest to me because it's not somewhere that I want to go to. Now, I just told you I've never gone to the place that we're invested in Texas, but Ohio wouldn't be as easy for me to get to. I don't know anything about Ohio, right? So that's how I made my personal decision, right? Now, someone else may have gone there. I know an investor who went and lived there for a month with their family, drove around, met all the power team, did all that work. There's a gentleman that we know who has hundreds of units in Ohio and has done very, very well there. And he immersed himself in that market and did well in that market. That's really important. Other people have done well in a place like Detroit. And again, that might be close for a lot of people. It could check off a lot of boxes for a lot of people. Their boxes may not be the same as the boxes that I would want to check. I tell people, for example, in Tennessee, to me, if you asked me if I wanted to invest in Nashville or Memphis, I would pick Nashville because it's easier for me to get to. I have more interest. I know more about the city. That's really, I think, when you're investing in the US, there should be a reason that you select a market on that sort of personal, whether you know the place, whether you have friends or family there, your company has offices there, you've traveled there, right? I mean, I learned a lot about cities like Chicago, Dallas, and DC is where I would spend most of my work time. And you learn more about those cities when you're there. So there's nothing wrong with picking a place that you know more about to invest with. In fact, I would recommend that.
I think, and I think focusing on areas that you invest in, it depends on the individual investor. What's your personality you can handle. Some people are uber focused and they focus on one particular city in one particular state. And
Yeah.
somebody will come to them with a great opportunity in another state and they said, sorry, not interested. I'm focused right here.
Yes.
Some other investors have the capacity to say, well, I like Ohio, I like North Carolina, and I like Texas, and I'm
Yeah.
diversifying my investment portfolio. So it's really up to you and as an investor what you can handle.
Yes. Your risk profile, right? Are you more comfortable taking that on in a market that you maybe know less about? Maybe it's the team. Maybe you're investing with the team regardless of where they are, right? They know the financials situations in each of those markets and they pick it. Yeah, but I do think it's a consideration to remember that each market has more differences than each market in Canada. And something as simple as you think about your corporate structure in the US, you're more than likely going to have one LLC for each property and what states those get put into, and how easy that is, right? It's just, there's an added layer regardless. We invest in 3 countries and I want people to understand that when you're investing outside of Canada, there are different considerations, and there's an additional layer of consideration around your legal, your accounting, your team, right? So there are the people who say, I'd rather invest in Canada and make the money and then go, rent my place in a Costa Rica or a Curacao or wherever it may be. When the time is right, I walk in and I don't have to worry about the light bulbs or anything. But, I speak to a lot of investors who say, oh, I'm trying to get this set up, or I'm trying to get my financing in Greece, for example. Or, we had to drive down to the US to open a bank account. We had to do that in person. So as long as you understand and are prepared for that extra layer, I think that's really important. And if you want to diversify, which is always, I think it's good to add some diversification to your portfolio. Investing with someone on the passive side may be the way for you to do that. So don't forget, you can invest both actively and passively in another country as well. That's another consideration, because it's like I say, investing in different markets in Canada is, fairly easy to do. Don't, please, anyone who's listening, understand that investing outside of your market does add complexities. But understand that if you're adding different laws, possibly in a different language, different business customs, then that can make a difference, right? You get into some of these municipalities in the US, and, something like zoning could be challenging for a Canadian in a municipality that their business custom is to sort of, work with who and relationships really matter. And you perhaps don't have those relationships yet. And they may be harder for you to create as an outsider, if you will. So, think about those things and think about ways to build your relationships. I do build my relationships in the US, attend events, go out and, I've gone to realtors events and real estate meetups, and join the Facebook groups for investors in your areas. You should do this regardless of the country. I think this is a really good tip. Find the investor groups, find the real estate groups on Facebook in the markets that you're in or that you're thinking about joining. And that will help you to learn a bit about those markets and start to establish some ties.
In terms of the teams, getting them established there, and I love this story, and this was shared by a friend that I believe we all know very well. And I hadn't heard this before, but in searching for, I haven't heard this in Canada or the United States. And in his process for searching for a property manager for his property in the States, as he's a Canadian investor and mostly up here, he narrowed it down to, I believe, about 6. I might not be saying this perfectly, but he narrowed it down to about 6. And then he went and I think narrowed it down to 3 or 4. And he went to the state and met with each of them in their office for a 2-hour meeting with a list of questions. And what he said was interesting. He said, when you're in their office, a property manager's office, for 2 hours, you get to see how a lot of things are handled, how the team, how the communication level is, and if they're able to manage effectively for their.
Yes. And I would add on to that one, go to the properties. So go to a property that they manage on the side. You don't let them know. Drop in, walk around that building, check the condition of it, hang out in the parking lot, talk to a resident if you can. You may even want to book a showing. I've heard of people doing that when they're getting really close to making an offer. Go see how they handle the tenant selection process, that sort of thing. You can always ask them to take you to a property.
Right.
Now, if they have advance notice, they're obviously going to take you to the one that's been, that's clean and that you want to see. But if you sort of, drop in, drive by their properties, check them out, be respectful of the tenants who live there, but sort of walk the property. And then, Darcy always laughs at me, but as you can imagine, I love chatting with people around where they are. And we were out actually scoping a property like this once. And the property across the street, there was a gentleman out there painting a fence. And we went over and talked to him. He had owned that building for 20 some years. So we could ask him about building A. How's it been run? You know, this property manager, what are they doing? And by the way, this guy was looking to sell his property. So within about 15 minutes, he was walking us through that second property. How amazing would that be to own these two properties right there and know that you have a great property manager in this first one, the second one that's been self-managed, they could then take over. So thinking about how to get this information and really sort of scope it out. I mean, we all know in our own markets, you might know who the great property managers are, right? And who aren't, you know. So for example, in Alberta, you know, I look and if I see, you know, Boardwalk, I've known the Coleus brothers for many, many years since CMHC, and they just run a great operation. And I know if I look at a building, if there's we were in Edmonton once looking at a building and it was boardwalk, boardwalk, boardwalk on the other side of the street. And I said, that means to me, location, 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 right? If they're there, that's just something I know because I know that market, right? So how do you take those shortcuts to find things out like that? So yes, definitely going to their office, talking to their employees, looking at their buildings, talking to their tenants is a great way. Even if you're just looking at a building, if you can talk to those tenants, you know, and you know, you don't have to tell them why you're looking at the property, but just ask them, hey, you live here? What do you think of this building? How has it been? You know, any problems with it? You know, everything in good condition? Tenants will tell you a lot.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah, yeah. I
it's
know Darcy was looking at it was a 10 units and doing the inspections. And of course, you know, he was going through them to do the inspection. He wasn't, you know, sort of the new owner. And the information that those tenants were so willing to share, especially on a property that's been poorly managed. In this case, sad story, the woman said, yeah, you know, my stove isn't working. And Darcy asked, well, how long has it been not working? And she said, well, I guess I've been here 2 years now. And he said, yeah, but you know, how long has the stove not working? She said, oh, it didn't work when I moved in. They said they were going to fix it. Can you imagine? Yeah, yeah. So don't be that landlord.
no, absolutely. And we're very grateful that the, you know, the community that we've been exposed to over the past few years in real estate investing, uh, everybody that we've come across
Yeah.
seems to be, you know, living by the rule of providing a safe, secure place for their tenants.
Yes.
It's not about, it's about making money, but it's about, you know, protecting people's lives. These could be our relatives, they could be anybody's relative that we know in our little circles, so we got to take care of them.
Yes, it's about providing housing, but it's about creating homes and remembering that our business is people's homes, right? I think that's really important to keep in mind, you know, and we share that with our family. You know, our sons know that these are people's homes that the family business is.
So we're not trying to, for all you watching this, we're not trying to scare you out of the US investing. There's just a
No.
lot to consider.
Yes.
The US and out of Canada, it's a different beast, and we just want you to be prepared. And, you know, make sure you reach out to somebody that's investing in there. You can learn a lot of great things from talking to somebody. And that's one of the other beautiful things about this community is that so many are willing to share their experiences and show you the ropes. That's what we really love.
But I think one thing that I'd like to mention and remind everyone out there is the self-accountability and responsibility. As you joining and jumping into this business, it is our duty to do our own due diligence, do our own homework, and ask all questions without holding back. And as we were reminded on today's episode, right, we can start passive if we're curious about a market. We can go and visit it. We don't need to do it alone, but you have to establish your awareness of what are all the complexities that come with that market that you're interested in.
Such great points, Irismar. I think it's there's always opportunity, and speaking with people who have been there and have that experience, that's how you learn about some of the little things that may come as surprises. And we should never be surprised that there are surprises in real estate.
No, absolutely. And so for everybody watching, Deanna, if they're interested in reaching out and learning more about whether it's US investing or the real estate, amazing ladies, awesome ladies, awesome ladies, how can they reach you, Deanna?
Yes, reach me on Instagram or Facebook at Deanna Boyden, and by email, Deanna at real-power.ca. I hope to see many of them in Toronto. I'll be doing a few Wealth Genius events later on in the spring. Looking forward to seeing people out at those. And always happy to talk to investors as you're looking at diversifying, building a portfolio that fits your lifestyle by design. And, that's the main thing for me, is that we are building portfolio to support our lifestyle, not the other way around. So diversify, research, as Irismar said, be strategic about how you want to live and then build your business behind that. And remember, you are entrepreneurs. I think that's a great point that we sometimes forget, that, at the heart of it, we're all entrepreneurs running businesses here, not just real estate portfolios, not just housing units. And we have the privilege of creating homes in our business.
Absolutely. Well, and as we started off with the show, make sure you understand your why, and that will make everything clear. So focus on that and reach out anytime anybody watching can certainly help you with that as well.
Thank you, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And thank you so much, Deanna, for a wonderful conversation today.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.